Ouijawii here with the Don Flamenco 2 part of the tutorial. Now, before we get into the speedrun strats for Don Flamenco 2, there is some things that you should practice first, and I call them the simpler strats. And what the simpler strats do is they kind of teach you his patterns, and they kind of teach you how to counter his punches. And that's very important for the speedrun strats, because the speedrun strats are all about countering his punches and getting the timing down correctly for those. So I would recommend you start here, and kind of get a good feel for how to beat him in round one. And even with these simpler strats, you can still get a time as low as a minute 45 or a minute 46. And if you're unlucky, you'll get a time just over 2 minutes. So these are still pretty good strats to use, even in a speedrun, if you're not comfortable with the speedrun strats yet. So in the bottom left part of the screen, you can see there's an icon for an NES controller, and I'm holding left on it because the left portion of it is highlighted. That means I'm already buffering a left dodge, and we're going to buffer a left slow dodge to start the fight. And then after that left slow dodge, we're going to buffer a quick left dodge. And that will automatically dodge his first punch of the fight, which is going to be a left hook. So we're going to do that, and then I'm going to punch him in the face 4 times. And then after that, we're going to wait for him to come back, and we have to counter his next 2 punches, and we're going to use the A button for those. So we have to wait for him to come back and then delay just a little bit. And this is the part where you're going to need to practice to get the timing down for. Comes back to the fight, and then A, and as you can see, the first counter punch gave us a star. And after the second counter punch here, he's going to go into a right hook, because his pattern is 3 left jabs followed by right hook every single time. So since we have a star, what we're going to do is we're going to dodge this right hook punch him in the face to stun him, and then we're going to use the star. And that's basically it. You're going to do that 4 times, and hopefully after the 4th time we've done that exact same thing, he's going to get knocked down for a second time. Each 2 times you do it will knock him down. And after the damage from the star is done going off right here, you can see he's already at half health. So after you've thrown that star punch, you notice I'm holding up on the controller here. And I'm doing that because after he does his pattern of 3 left jabs followed by a right hook, he can do a random delay. However, if you're holding up on the D-pad, you lock his delay into the fastest possible delay that he can do, so it always speeds up the fight, and you always know when the next punch is coming. And you know that because his feet are going to go out and then in again and then out again. Then he's going to get ready to punch. So they've gone out here, they're going to go in here, they're going to go out here, and then he backs up and gets ready to punch. So this is your cue to dodge, and we're going to do the same exact thing. We're going to punch him in the face 4 times, followed by 2 right counters to the gut. Get a star, dodge, punch, and star, and down he goes at 47 seconds. Now the speedrun strats for this are only a few seconds faster, and the only difference is in the speedrun strats you get chances for what's called lucky stars. But we'll get into that in a little bit. Phase 2 is actually going to be exactly the same as Phase 1 for you, where we're going to buffer a slow left dodge. I'm already holding left on the controller, followed by a quick left dodge. 4 face punches, right counter, dodge, punch, star. And then we're going to do that again, holding up here. His feet are going to go out, in, and out. Get ready to dodge. 4 face punches, counter, dodge, punch, star. And that's great. You've already knocked him down 2 times. There's only 1 more knockdown to do. And one thing to know about Don Flamenco 2 is at a minute and 30 seconds, we're at a minute 35 now, he changes his pattern up. He doesn't throw punches anymore. Now he goes into a defensive mode, where he taunts you to punch him, and he won't punch you until you try to punch him first. And even if you do try to punch him first, and it has to be in the face, by the way, if you try to punch him in the gut, he won't retaliate. So you have to do a face punch here to force him to retaliate, and you can't do any damage to him at all unless he does. And the problem with this part is about half the time or so, he won't retaliate, and he'll just block you. And that actually happens right here. We try to punch him in the face a couple times, and he doesn't retaliate yet. But on this 3rd punch, he does. And you can see, he goes straight into his windmill uppercut here. He raises his glove, gets ready to punch you. So this is your cue to dodge, because you don't want to get hit by this. This is a pretty strong punch. And what we're going to do is we're going to dodge this, and then we're going to do a combination of face punches that are left, left, right, over and over until we win. Left, left, right. Just over and over. And this is actually a stun lock on Don Flamenco 2. This is a nice trick to know. It doesn't last forever, but it does last long enough so that in Phase 3 here, you can keep doing it until you knock him down and out. And those are the simple strats, and as you can see, I got a 209 on the clock. around a 210, which really isn't all that bad. Should practice these strats, I think, until you get a good feel for the counter punches and dance patterns and things like that. I'm going to show phase one more time here, kind of walk you through it. But this time, I want you to pay attention to the refill, okay? And he gets random refills for the second phase only. That's the only phase you need to worry about is refills. He can give you a high refill, a mid refill, or a low refill. And I'll show you exactly what to look for as far as those go. So after we dodge punch star and down here, this will be phase two, and he's going to give us a big refill in this one. Now notice the notches in his health bar, okay? After you do the slow left dodge and the quick left dodge, and you dodge his punch and punch him once, that's your opportunity to look up at his health bar and to see how big of a refill he got. Okay, so as your second punch is hitting him, you'll know. Punch once, and then as this one's going off, you look up and you see, oh wow, he's got his health is in between the right notch and then the notch just to the left of that. So we know we got the big refill. If we had the middle refill, his health would be directly under the second notch, right above the 6 in the points in the 60. And if we had the low refill, it would have been even further to the left of that, in between the notches to the left. So another thing to know is the big refill you get 3 out of 8 times. The mid refill you get half the time, 4 out of 8. And the low refill is kind of an uncommon one. It only happens if he gets up on an 8 count, and it only happens 1 out of 8 times. So that's stuff to know going forward. Anyway, here we got the big refill. And we're going to do phase 2 exactly the same as phase 1. But this time, you want to save the star going into phase 3. So after these 2 counters, you're going to punch him in the face, but instead of using the star, you're just going to punch him in the face again. And now you know it's minute 34 on the clock, so it's after minute 30, which means he's in defensive mode. You have to punch him in order to make him retaliate. So that's what we're going to do right away. You can see I'm already holding up in B, waiting for the punch to go off. It does, he retaliates, and you can knock him down in 1 punch here. But now we're going into phase 3 and we have a star. So instead of doing the left-right face punch combo over and over until he goes down, we're going to use that combo, but we're only going to hit him 13 times. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Then use the star, and that will finish him off. And instead of getting a 2 minute and 10 second time or around there, because we carried the star over into phase 3, it actually sped up the phase quite a bit, and we get a sub 2 minute time. Minute 55. So, let me show you what happens when you get the mid refill. And again, phase 1's going to be the same. Just going to keep doing this over and over until he goes down. Holding up here, dodge 4 face punches, right counter, dodge punch star. Okay. So again, when he gets up, you want to take a peek at his health as your second punch is going off after you've dodged his first jab. So slow right dodge, quick right dodge, punch, punch, and you look up and you, oh wow, it's right next to the second notch, so we know we got the mid refill. Okay. Everything is still the same going forward. But he's going to go down just a little bit sooner this time. Counter, counter, dodge, punch, and oh, he went down. We didn't have to punch him again. So that's good. That means he went down a little quicker. We should get a little bit of a faster time. Phase 3, he retaliates. You do 13 face punches using the left-left-right combo. Use the star, and we get a sub 1 minute and 50 second time, a 1:48. Not bad. And now, one more time, I'll show what the low refill looks like here. We're going to go straight into phase 2 here. So dodge, face punch, and then right here you peek. And oh look, his health is pretty low there. That's how you know you get the low refill. It's to the left of the second notch to the right. So, good thing about this particular strategy here is you don't really need to change anything up. Just note, after you've recognized the refills, counter, counter, and he goes down on that counter, you didn't even have to dodge his hook. So, 1:28. So, we're not at a minute 30 yet. Okay. However, I'm still going to buffer up and be here because the clock starts ticking before your punch can even hit him. And at a minute 30, he's going to go into his defensive mode. If you try to punch him before a minute 30, he's just going to block 100% of the time without any retaliation. However, at a minute 28, you can buffer this punch, and it won't hit him until a minute 30. So, as you can see, nothing's happened yet, and the clock's already ticked up to 129. The punch is going off, it hasn't hit him yet, and the clock is at a minute 30. So now, just before the punch hits him, he's now in retaliation mode. So this is actually going to start phase 3 very, very soon. And he does retaliate right away, which is great. So now we're going to get a really low time. You do 13 face punches using left, left, right. Use the star, and even with the simple strats here, you can get a time as low as 145. And that's very good. So the speedrun strats I'll show coming up right now, but if you find them a little bit too complicated or a little bit too hard after learning these, you can still use these in speedruns. The simpler strats are still fairly fast, and again, I wouldn't recommend trying the speedrun strats until you can do this pretty consistently without taking any damage, and getting him around 2 minutes or faster in round 1 every single time. Okay, so after you're comfortable with the beginner strats for Dawn 2 and you want to try the speedrun strats here, I'll show how that looks. And phase 1 isn't really all that much different. There's a few different things in it that you're going to want to learn, and the first one is the first punch of the fight. Now, we're still going to buffer the fight with the slow left dodge, but we're also going to do another slow left dodge after the first one. So we're going to buffer 2 slow left dodges and do a delayed gut punch right there, and that's going to give you a star. And that punch right there is kind of tricky to land. It's kind of a small frame window, kind of like the first punch on Bowl 2, if you've learned those strats. And it might take a little practice to get used to pulling that one off. And one other thing to know about this punch is you're actually completely skipping his second jab of the fight. So what's going on here is you're dodging his first jab, and then because you're doing a late punch, you're hitting him as his guard is changing into his second jab, and he's unable to block it. There's a couple frames there. I'm going to guess somewhere around 6 frames where you can land this punch. And where he's about to throw a second jab, but instead you hit him in the gut and counter. So his next punch is actually going to be the third punch of the fight. But before we do that, I'm going to show this one more time. Okay, so the fight's going to start 2 slow left dodges, punch, just like that. And then we're going to counter, 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 and then use the star right away. Okay, so instead of punching him in the face 4 times and then doing 2 right counters, what you're going to do is a delayed gut punch, and then you're going to do 1 right counter, and then you're going to do a left face counter. And the timing for that is pretty similar to the second right counter. Again, with some practice, you'll get a feel for it. I'll show it again one more time. You're going to open the fight with 2 slow left dodges, late gut punch to get a star, another gut punch, and then a face punch, and then you're going to hold up and start. The reason you hold up again is because after he does his jab and hook combo, he's going to go into random delay, but if you're holding up, you can lock him into the short delay, so we're going to do that here. And because phase 1's a little bit differently, we're not going to wait for his feet to go out, in, and out. His feet are going to open up and go out, and they're going to stop just right here. And he's going to get ready to punch you right away. So phase, the second part of the first phase here is actually a little quicker. You got to get ready to counter his next punch right now. And we're going to counter 3 left jabs, and then we're going to counter his right hook again. So right here, we're going to start countering 1, 2, 3, left jab, get a star and use it, hold up, and his feet go out, he does a little delay, and we get ready to counter. This time we're going to counter with our left, only because it's a little faster. If you don't want to counter with your left ever in this fight, you don't have to. You can just simply do right gut counters the entire time. So anytime you see me doing a left gut counter, it's really unnecessary. I only do it because the left gut punch is a couple of frames faster than a right gut punch, so technically it saves you a few frames here and there. But to keep it simple, you can keep doing right gut punches to counter his hooks here. And then when you counter his last right hook, he will go down. And this phase is a little faster than the beginner strats, the simple strats. You'll get a 45 on the clock, sometimes a 44, sometimes a 46. So I'm going to show that all one more time. because this is the standard phase 1 in the speedrun strats. And again, the first punch of the fight after 2 slow left dodges is a little tricky to hit. Do that. Use the star, hold up. Watch his feet go out. Right here, little delay, and then counter his next 3, and then counter his face, and then down he goes. So that's the standard phase 1. That might take you a little bit of practice to get used to. The timing on his counters is a little tricky. His punches are kind of sneaky fast. But with some practice, as long as you know exactly when he's going to start moving for his next punch and you get used to that, then this really isn't all that hard. Okay, so now we're getting into phase 2, and phase 2 is going to be it's going to start out a little bit differently, okay? We're going to start out by countering his first punch, and it comes pretty quickly. When he comes into this fight, his gloves will be up, as they are now. Let me back it up just a little bit. As he walks forward, his gloves are up. He's going to drop his gloves, and then he's going to, his feet are going to go out, and when his feet go out, that's how you know his punch is about to come, okay? So he's going to come into the fight, the gloves will drop, his feet will go out, his gloves will come up, and I'm already hitting A. So this is where you want to counter his first punch, just like that. So I'll show that again. We're going to counter his next 2 punches in the same manner. 1, 2, 3, and we'll get a star off of that one. And now we know his next punch is going to be a right hook because he always does 3 left gut punches followed by a right hook. So we're going to dodge that, punch him once to stun him, and then use the star. And this is where we're going to want to take a look at his refill right here. So because we're looking at his refill at a different time in phase 2, this is where you want to take a peek now if you're using the speedrun strats to know what we got. And this is actually the big refill. So the big refill using these strats are going to be in between the 2nd and 3rd notches to the right. The mid refill is going to be just slightly to the left of the 3rd notch. And then the low refill is going to be kind of, it's going to be in between the middle notches, a little further to the left. So we'll see that in a little bit. So this is the high refill. So after that star punch hits him, again, we're going to hold up. His feet are going to go out and in and out. And then get ready to counter punch him here by hitting A, and then in the face. And then again, holding up. His feet go out, in and out. Counter, counter, counter. And that's it. So only 1 star used in that phase, and it came after the first one that we got. And then the rest of the phase is just counter punches until he goes down, holding up in between his patterns. And again, going into phase 3, it's 1:28 on the clock, so we know that we can buffer up in B and hope he retaliates because it's not going to hit him until 1:30 right here. And he does retaliate. Nice. And it's the same thing we've already learned where we do 13 face punches using the left-left-right combo, and we knock him down with the star. So that was the big refill. Now, next I'm going to show the mid refill. Phase 2 is going to start exactly the same. 1, 2, 3, dodge, punch, star. And you take a look at the health right now, and it's just to the left of the 3rd notch to the right, so we know we got the mid refill. Okay. Out and out, holding up, counter, 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 hold up, out and out, counter, and down he goes. Great. Okay, so he went down before 1:30 now, which means if you've knocked him down at 124 or less with the mid refill, it's typically around 123. You know you're going to have time to counter some more punches, and phase 3 is going to start just like phase 2, where he's going to come to the fight, he's going to drop his guard right here, his feet are going to go out, and his guard's going to come up, and that's your cue to counter. Feet went out, guard went up, I'm already hitting A. We're going to counter 2 punches, we're going to get a star. And then it's already 1:30, so we're going to buffer up and B and hope he retaliates. But this time, since we've already done some damage to him, we don't need to punch him 13 times using left, left, right. We only need to punch him 8. And one of the important parts about right here is after he's thrown his windmill uppercut here, you don't want to hit him too soon. Because if you do, you're not going to get rapid punches right away. And rapid punches slow the clock down. You want to hit him 8 times with rapid punches, just like this. And then use the star, and down he'll go at 141. So if you remember Dawn 1, the second phase in Dawn 1, where you dodge his uppercut and then you knock him down, You don't want to punch him too quickly after that uppercut because you'll get slow punches. And instead of getting a 141, you'll get something like a 146 or 147. So that wastes quite a bit of time. So let me show you the low refill now. Again, start the same. Counter, counter, counter. Dodge, punch, star. And then as this is going off, you can peek at his health. And because it's in between the two middle notches, you get the low refill. So that's pretty great. Holding up here, out and out, counter, 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 counter. And down he goes. So a minute 15, minute 16, that's great. Usually it'll be about a minute 16, minute 17, I think. So that was pretty fast. So in this phase, we're going to start it out just like we did with the mid refill. We're going to counter his first two punches, okay? We're going to get a star. However, if he had the low refill, that means we have time to do more before he goes into his defensive phase. So we're just going to counter the first two punches. 1, 2. We're going to get a star from that one. Now we're going to dodge his third his third jab. We're going to punch him once and then use the star. And then after that lands, it'll be right around a minute 30. Right here. Okay, good. So his health is going to go way down. And now, because it's a minute 30, we know to hold up and B, which I'm already doing. Hope he retaliates right away. And we're going to get rapid punches to knock him down. Rapid punches will slow the clock down just a bit. And we can get something as low as a 136 using these strats, which is pretty good. And that's basically it for the standard phase 2. It's all about recognizing the refills and knowing what to do. And now we're going to start talking about Lucky Stars. And Lucky Stars is the same thing for phase 2. It's all about recognizing the refill and knowing what to do. And then depending on how many Lucky Stars you got, then that is going to determine what you're going to do in phase 3. So let's show what Lucky Stars are in this fight right now. Alright, so Lucky Stars, what are they? A Lucky Star can only happen when you're already holding a star, and you counter one of his punches, and then you get another star when you're not supposed to. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you've noticed that we're always getting stars at the same time, on the same punch, and those stars are actually set. All of the strats that you've learned so far, and every star that you've ever gotten, those are guaranteed. But every now and then, you'll get a star that isn't guaranteed, and again, it only happens if you already have one, and it only happens 1 out of 16 times, and only when you counter a punch. So they're really, really rare, and they also complicate the fight quite a bit. So I'm going to try to cover exactly what to do whenever you get them, and it's going to take some memorization for sure. So what is a Lucky Star? Okay, so this is phase 1. We're starting the fight. We're going to do 2 slow left dodges and then counter them to get the first star, which is guaranteed. Okay, and we got it. Now we're going to counter his next 2 punches, and then we're going to use the star just like always. However, one of these next 2 counters is going to give us a Lucky Star. Right there. We just got it. I'm already holding start. Hit him with the star, hold up, and that'll lock his pattern into the faster phase, but we have an extra star now. So what do we do with it? Well, nothing right now. We're just going to keep doing phase 1 the same way we always do. Holding up here, counter, 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 counter. Okay. So, because we were holding a star, any one of those counter punches near the end could have also given us Lucky Stars. And the only way to really get Lucky Stars using this strat is right in the beginning of the fight. The second and the third punches, after you get this star right here. So this one or this one. If you don't get a Lucky Star from one of those 2 punches and you're using this particular speedrun strat, then you're never going to get a Lucky Star. Because anytime you get a star using these strats, you're pretty much going to use it right away every single time. So if you don't get one here, then you're not getting Lucky Stars. But if you do, it's always good to know what to do with them when you get them. Again, if you get one early in phase 1, just like we did, phase 1's still the same no matter what. We're gonna carry these stars over to the next phase and then even further into phase 3, and that's where the time save is going to happen. Okay, so what's going on here? We have 3 fights in the top left, middle, and top right, and then we have a chart at the bottom. And I'm going to show you what to do if you have lucky stars going into phase 2 and 3. Now, one thing to note is phase 2 is all about what refill you get, and then phase 3 is all about dealing with those lucky stars. So it doesn't matter how many lucky stars you have going into phase 2. As long as you know what to do, then you're going to do the same thing every single time, as long as you have a lucky star, okay? If you have 1 lucky star, 2 lucky stars, 3 lucky stars, it doesn't matter. Phase 2 is always going to be the same, and it's all going to depend on the refill. And that refill is going to be recognized when that star punch is going off, because if you have a lucky star going into phase 2, you're going to dodge, punch, and then throw an uppercut right here. And as that uppercut's going off, that's where you peak at his health. And just like the beginner strats, it's the second punch of the phase. You peak at his health here, and you know if it's in between the right notch in his health bar and the one to the left of that, then you get the big refill, which we did. And if his health would have been below the second notch, we would have had the mid refill. And if his health would have been to the left of that, we would have had the low refill. So we know we get the big refill, which means if you look at the bottom of the sheet in pink, it says the high fill for phase 2. It's always the same no matter how many stars you have. And it is dodge, punch, uppercut, which is what's going off right now. And then right counter times 2. And then after that, it's dodge, punch, uppercut, right counter times 2. So the high fill is pretty easy to remember. And one thing to know about starting phase 2 with any number of lucky stars is the first 4 actions are always dodge, punch, uppercut, followed by a right counter. And then after that, it can change depending on what the fill was. So here, we dodge, punch, uppercut, right counter times 2, dodge, punch, uppercut. Now we have to hold up. It goes out, in, and out, and then right counter times 2. And that it's phase 2 with the high refill. And as you can see, I had 1 lucky star, 2 lucky stars, and 3, but they were all exactly the same phase. But now, as we go into phase 3, they're going to change. And on the left, we had 1 lucky star, but now we don't have any. So that fight's starting. And if you had 1 lucky star going into phase 3, it says in the chart to right counter times 3. Okay, dodge, punch, and uppercut. So we're going to do that. Right counter times 1, 2, 3. Get a star, dodge, punch, and uppercut. Now we have to force a retaliation and gain rapid punches because it's 1:30 on the clock. So we're going to buffer up in B. He retaliates, get rapid punches, down he goes at 1:37. Cool. Now, we had 2 lucky stars in the middle screen, and that fight's about to start now. For phase 3, we're going to throw the uppercut right away. Just like that, you buffer start, then you do 2 right counters, duck and throw that uppercut. And then if you had 3 lucky stars, it's actually exactly the same thing going into phase 3 if you had the high refill. Going to buffer start for the uppercut, counter twice, duck, and buffer start for the uppercut. And we'll have an extra star left over, but yeah, that's just the nature of it, I guess. 2 lucky stars, 3 lucky stars, doesn't really matter if you have the high refill. The strats are exactly the same. Okay, now I'm going to show mid-refill phase 2. And phase 2, again, you have to memorize depending on what refill you get, and recognizing it fast is obviously super important. And it's going to happen after you dodge punch, and as that star is going off, you see his health is right below the second notch, so you know you get the mid-refill. This one's a little trickier to remember than the others, but again, I highly recommend you memorize what to do for phase 2 depending on what refill you get, okay? So this one's going to be dodge, punch, uppercut, which is going off right now, followed by a right counter, dodge, punch times 3, uppercut, left counter, okay? So dodge, punch, uppercut, right counter, dodge, punch times 3, uppercut, left counter. And that's phase 2 if you have 1 lucky star, 2 lucky stars, or 3 lucky stars. Again, it's always the same. But phase 3, in the top left, you're going to see what happens if you have 1 lucky star. You're going to counter the first 3 punches. And then you're going to counter the 4th punch, hold up, out, in, out, counter the 5th punch. Now we're going to dodge punch 2 times and throw the uppercut. And that's phase 3. Mid-refill with 1 lucky star. So the one in the middle is about to start. Phase 3 mid-refill with 2 lucky stars. We actually have a star going into phase 3, so we're going to hold start to throw the uppercut before countering twice, ducking, and then using the uppercut, much like we did with the high refills and 2 lucky and 3 lucky stars. It's the same exact thing. And that's actually a really strong time, 124. And then now on the right side, phase 3 is a little bit different than what we've seen. We're going to buffer start to throw the uppercut. And then we're going to dodge punch twice, throw another uppercut. And then counter him down. You get a 122. So that's a little bit faster. But yeah, again, practice memorizing phase 2s and have a chart handy for phase 3s. I think having a chart handy is super, super helpful. And now we look at low refill, 1 lucky, 2 lucky, and 3 lucky stars. Phase 2 is always going to be the same. It's dodge, punch, uppercut right here. You look at his health, and if it's in between the second and third notches to the right, you know you got the low refill, which is great because this is probably when all the cool stuff happens. Then after that, you just counter, dodge, punch twice, and then use the star to knock him down. And you'll get a 104 on the clock, 104 or 105, which is pretty awesome. And now we get to have lots of fun in phase 3 and see some really ridiculous times. So on the top left, you'll see low fill with 1 lucky star. You're going to start with a bunch of counter punches here, 5 of them to be exact. Hold up here, wait for him, throw that 5th one, dodge, punch him twice, and down he goes at 132. Pretty awesome time. But if you had a lucky star and you're going into phase 3 with it, instead of starting with a whole bunch of counters, we're going to dodge his first punch, stun him, and then use an uppercut, as you can see by the chart. So phase 3 starts, dodge, punch twice, uppercut, counter twice, do that duck, and throw that last star, and you'll get a 125, which is pretty awesome. You don't see times like that hardly ever in speedruns, but they are possible, as you can see. You just need a lot of luck. You need a low refill and some lucky stars. But if you ever find yourself in this situation where you have 3 lucky stars and a low refill going into phase 3, all you do is hold the uppercut, dodge, hit him twice, throw another uppercut, and then counter him down. And if you do end up pulling this off in a run and get a sub 1 minute and 20 second Dawn 2 time, please go play the lottery. Because I've never seen a run this slow in a speed run. I've never gotten a time this slow myself, but there it is. If you ever wanted to see what it looks like, 118.61 Dawn 2. And that will conclude the Dawn 2 speedrun strats for the basic speedrun strats anyway. There is a more advanced strategy for Dawn Flamenco 2, but if you think this one's complicated, then you'd be in for a surprise because the other one's even more complicated than this one. Hopefully I'll get around to covering that at some point, but that's definitely going to be a separate tutorial. So for now, I'm done with Dawn Flamenco 2. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.